Good to see everybody. Happy Monday after spring break. Okay, so we'll have the call to order tonight. Right now, there are no changes to our agenda. So that is, so we'll approve the agenda as written at this point. Okay, that takes us down to 3 recognitions. All right, and then Superintendent, you're going to talk about the Florida Purple Star School District. Now, I know we've recognized different schools, but now it's a whole district thing?
Yes, ma'am. So now it's at the district level, and we do have folks from Eglin, Duke, and Hobart who will be here tonight. So we have leadership from those bases who will be here, and Mr. Spolsky will present the school district with this recognition, but then we'll also have those folks who will be here as well.
Terrific. So how many school districts are receiving this accolade?
To my understanding, 5 across the state, so 5 out of 67.
That's fabulous, and we're one of 5. That's
yes,
great.
Ma'am.
Okay, that'll be great tonight. Okay, we have another student group, 3.2. We're going to recognize the Niceville High School cheerleaders, the 2025 Florida High School Athletic Association 2A Large All-Girls State Champions. And we're always excited to have students here to recognize them, so that'll be tonight too.
6 straight years.
Woohoo! And I believe you have a relative on that?
I do.
Okay.
I have a liability.
Okay. All right, I'm going to pass that up. Okay. All right, then we have on 4.0, we have no administrative personnel appointments this evening. 5 is public comment on the blue card form, and we don't know about that, of course, yet. Going to 6.0, committee and staff reports. So 6.1 is in-county travel paid for February 2025, presented by Miss Julie Perry. 6.2 is out-of-county travel paid for February 2025, presented by Miss Perry. Moving on to our consent agenda, 7.0. 7.1 will be the approval of the consent agenda. 7.2 will be motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting on March 10th, minutes of the workshop on March 10th, and minutes of the regular meeting March 10th, 2025, recommended by the superintendent. 7.3, appropriation of District 1 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Antioch Elementary School for Clear Touch panels in the amount of $5,000, presented by Dr. White. 7.4, appropriation of District 2 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Antioch Elementary School for Clear Touch panels in the amount of $5,000, presented by Parker Destin. 7.5, appropriation of District 3 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Antioch Elementary for Clear Touch panels in the amount of $2,575.25, and that is presented by myself. 7.6, appropriation of District 4 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Antioch Elementary School for Clear Touch panels in the amount of $16,000, presented by Mr. Bryant.
Madam Chair, if I can just comment on the last 4.
Certainly.
Again, thank you to my fellow board members for helping. Obviously, Clear Touches have been the majority of our purchases this year, but obviously, all of us contributed to this school, and I appreciate that. So,
yeah, certainly. Well, that shows we always work together to try to do what we can for the schools, so thank you. All right. 7.7, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Niceville High School for reimbursement of baseball fence repairs funded by the Niceville High School Baseball Club in the amount of $4,800, presented by Mr. Heinley. 7.8, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Ruckle Middle School for Clear Touch panels, the amount of $12,881.97, presented by Mr. Heinley. 7.9, request to advertise a public hearing for revision of School Board Policy 02-20, Cellular Telephone Allowance Program, presented by Mr. Spolsky, Assistant Superintendent, MIS Communication Relations, and recommended by the Superintendent.
Madam Chair, I have a question on that.
That'd be Mr. Spolsky.
Mr. Spolsky. So we currently have a cell phone policy?
Yes, sir. We do.
And what's the revision part of that?
We cleaned up some of the language in there, sir. We didn't change any of the amounts for the allowance, but there was a few red line strikes within the policy as it pertained to safety and duty. Would an employee need to be on call 24/7 versus periodically? And
And so you have a master list of all the people that are available to get this and the amounts they get?
yes, and it's outlined in School Board Policy 2-20. There's a form that goes along with that, an MIS form, and then the supervisor for each of the departments designates should the person be at this level, or this level.
So I was reading through the policy and I have one question. So these are their personal plans and you're just giving a bonus to them,
An allowance.
an allowance?
Yes, sir.
And then, but I thought it said that if they get a plan and they're no longer in that position, then we have to reimburse or take care of ending that plan. So if let's say they get a plan that's a 3-year plan, and then they're no longer in that, do we have to pay that plan out?
There was some language in there that referred to that, Mr. Heinley. And my understanding with that is that if they were to leave employment with us, then we wouldn't be responsible for that, as if they moved internally within our organization.
Okay, all right. I was just reading that.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't
Good
clear.
question.
Okay.
And I might clarify, then that would only be if that phone had been taken out specifically because they had to have it for work purposes.
But it would still be their personal phone.
Correct, but they would only have gotten it because of a duty requirement.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
This is possibly a Jeff question and a Mr. Spolsky question. How do we ensure that we're in compliance with public records law? These are personal phones, right? And so how do we ensure that we don't lose records by virtue of them switching plans, switching phones, things like that, instead of giving them their own district-issued phone?
Yeah, I'll let Mr. McGinnis answer that. My understanding, Mr. Destin, is if we're communicating from our own personal phone or from a phone that is funded through this cell phone allowance program, that they're all public records. But I'll let Mr. McGinnis.
And that's correct. They are. And so they're told that they understand that once they use that personal phone for business, the public records law is not based upon the kind of device or the location of the device. It's based upon what's done with the device. And so, yes, if they're using their personal phone for business purposes, those would be records.
Anything else on that one? Okay. All right, we're moving on to 7.11, Budget Amendment Number 6, Fiscal Year 24-25, presented by Ms. Perry, Chief Financial Officer. 7.12, Monthly Financial Statement for February 2025, presented by...
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
sorry.
We missed 7.10.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let me finish with 12 and I'll go back. Thank you for that. On 7.12, Monthly Financial Statement for February 2025, presented by Ms. Perry. And forgive me, let's go back to 7.10. All right. 7.10, request to advertise a public hearing for the proposed re-missioning of Eglin Elementary School to add the 5th grade after the end of the 24-25 school year and thereafter operate as a K through 5 elementary school, presented by Mr. Spolsky, Assistant Superintendent.
And Mr. Van Scheck and School Board, as you know, on this particular item, Mr. Spolsky has spoken with each of you. He's also spoken with entities that are would be impacted by this decision. And this decision came by way of Eglin leadership, making a request for this. So this is something that we then looked into. We looked at allocations. We looked at impact to school data. If this is approved tonight, Mr. Spolsky will then meet with families. He'll do the same process that we did for Blue Water, Destin Middle, to make sure families have the ability to share information. But we'll go through that very systematic and thorough process as well. But this did come from a request from leadership at Eglin Air Force Base.
And aren't we just kind of reverting back to where it was before?
So Eglin Elementary right now is a K through 4. It used to be a K through 5. Fifth grade was moved to Lewis. Lewis has K through 8. There still would be a fifth grade at Lewis. But now if this were to pass after the advertisement period and when it eventually would come to a vote, then Eglin Elementary would also have a K5.
They both will, okay.
And this will also relieve some pressure on Lewis?
I would not necessarily say it would relieve pressure, but it would create more capacity.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, anything else on that topic? All right. All right, so let's go back down to 7.13. All right. Invoices to be approved for payment presented by Ms. Perry, Chief Financial Officer. 7.14, school donations presented by Ms. Perry, Chief Financial Officer. 7.15, payroll warrant register and accounts payable warrant register totaling $31,504,336.95. Self-health insurance claims and fees totaling $2,615,724.47, and bank transfers totaling 0 for February 2025, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.16, payroll calendars for fiscal year 25-26, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.17, renewal of ITB 20-11 annual ceiling tile replacement bid, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director of Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.18, renewal of ITB 20-12 door replacement and repair district-wide bid, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director, Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent. I do have a question on that. Is this the one with the new locks, these doors?
No, ma'am. This is a renewal of the contract to replace the door and hardware
Okay.
through Anchor Doors.
Okay, so throughout, okay, wherever it's needed, right?
Mr. Miles, I have another question. So most of those ones that I've seen in the past have an automatic 3-year additional, and this one's 5. Is there a reason for that?
I think Mr. Wyndham can explain that more, but my understanding is that we could have either 3 years or 5 years,
Okay,
depending on the contract.
okay. I mean, that answers it, but.
Yes, the original bid with the 5-year bid,
Mhm.
in the state statute allows you to renew up to 5 years, the amount of the original bid contract, or, annually. So
Okay.
this one's 5-year contract, we could renew up to 5 1-year periods.
Okay. So the other ones
That's the way
are,
it's written in the RFP.
right, yeah, I read that. That's the first 5 one I saw. Most all the ones have been 3.
Most of them are 3, we have some 5s.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, on to 7.19, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Meteor Education LLC, presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.20, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Electronic Maintenance and Communications, Inc., presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.21, exempted purchase over $50,000, Scholastic, Inc., presented by Mr. Wyndham. 7.22, sale and disposal of surplus property, presented by Mr. McElroy, Program Director of Maintenance. 7.23, certification of the Okaloosa County School District Facilities FISH data for 2025, presented by Dr. Smith. 7.24, dual enrollment articulation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Northwest Florida State College for 25-26, presented by Ms. Barron. 7.25, amendment to collegiate high school charter presented by Dr. Choice, Program Director, Student Support Services.
Madam Chair, I have a question on that one.
Yes, sir.
I need to be educated on this a little bit. So when we have a student going to collegiate high school, we lose that FTE from wherever they come from. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I was reading through that agreement, and it said that we have the ability to work with the collegiate high school and actually have those classes in the public schools, if so desired. Have we ever done that?
So I believe what you're referring to there, you can come forward, Ms. Lightbourne, is the dual enrollment aspect of it. And for the dual enrollment aspect, our instructors would have to have a specific degree.
Correct. So dual enrollment, we can have teachers teaching on our campuses, but they do have to have a master's in that content area.
Okay. So there's a possibility we could save some not lose those FTEs if we did it that way. We had all the things lined up and all the stars are
correct, but we've had difficulty finding teachers. We used to have that. There were several teachers that had masters, say in math, and so they would be able to teach the dual enrollment courses. But the college would be paying them for that time period. It's a little bit complex. They have to become one of the college's employees as well as ours. So there's lots of pieces to that. But at this point, we don't have any teachers at our high schools that are interested in that.
And right now, the money that we are not getting for that student, that goes to the college? Is that right?
So money would flow to the college to educate that student, but and that's a good question. When we're really talking about two different programs.
Okay.
So when you look at the collegiate school, these are students who want to go to collegiate for that opportunity.
Okay.
And it's true, when they leave there, they'll have all the dual enrollment classes. They'll have an AA degree at the end. But more specifically to your question, most times it would be offering a dual enrollment course at a high school with a teacher who had a master's in that content area to offset students going to the college just for a dual enrollment class versus to collegiate.
Okay. I'm mixing up. I'm doing
Collegiate's
apples and oranges
full-time,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
they do get the FTE. Dual enrollment's not full-time.
Right.
And collegiate's the charter. I know you know, but just for everyone else, collegiate's the charter school as opposed to going to the college for a course.
here. Okay. Thank you.
And so it looks like they can, this time, gain up to 50 new students, according to this.
And I know the board knows, but they have the ability, due to being a solid charter school, they have the ability to add up to the 50 students each year. They have that ability to do so.
Yep, that's right. Okay. All right. So moving along to 7.26, school affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Silvercrest Health and Rehabilitation Center, presented by Mr. Williams, Director at Okaloosa Technical College. 7.27, 8.29 Community Education Summary Driver Education Program, presented by Mr. Humphrey, Specialist Student Services, Athletics, and Discipline. That's our summer driving program. All right, 7.28, request to submit an application for the International Baccalaureate Teacher Bonus Program special grant, presented by Ms. Gillis, Specialist Curriculum and Instruction. 7.29, Memorandum of Understanding between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Okaloosa County, Florida, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, on behalf of its Department of Corrections to establish an effective, secure, and efficient agreement between these parties to provide the computer equipment to be used by juvenile detainees inmates for educational purposes, presented by Dustin Keith, Specialist. Did you want to make any comment on that, Mr. Chambers?
The only thing I would say, I think this has been years in the making to get this to where it is today. And I think we're going to be at a much better place for those students.
So that just allows them to do some online courses and things, is that right?
Just like the academy.
Just like the academy, yeah. Okay, good. All right. That takes us down to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1 for information only, employees on administrative leave, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.2, information only, deferred retirement option program, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.3, waiver of the OCEA master contract requested by Okaloosa STEM Academy to waive the daily planning period requirement for the 25-26 school year, presented by Ms. Nihil Taylor, Principal, Okaloosa STEM Academy. Okay, anything on that? All right. 8.4, employment separations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.5, personnel recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.6, employee transfers, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.7, reinstatement, reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.8, leave without pay, presented by Dr. Hale. All right, we don't have anything on 9, discussion agenda at this time. Section 10, construction program owners, representatives, business. A lot of apostrophes in that. 10.1, program status report by the board's representative. Mr. Heinley, what's happening?
That report was given at
The beginning.
at the last meeting.
So we're good to go. All right.
We'll do it next meeting.
Yep. 10.2, TPM program number 6, task order number 12, scope modification number 4, prior middle school cafeteria renovation, presented by Dr. Smith, program director for facilities.
Madam Chair, I would just like to comment on this particular item. I know this is something we've been working on for quite a few years. So it's kind of, I know Ms. Barron is sitting out there in the audience, so I know she was part of that, but it looks like we're on our way to getting that done. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. 10.3, TPM program number 6, task order number 34, scope modification number 1, district-wide sales tax construction projects, Meigs Middle School new gym floor, presented by Dr. Smith, program director.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to comment on this particular item also because I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to visit where they're doing the new construction up front, and then we actually walked into the gym, and this is definitely needed. There's a lot of bad spots on that floor, and so I'm excited for the students of Meigs and the athletes who use that gym floor. It's going to be a nice new gym floor for them. So.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. 10.4, TPM program number 6, task order number 39, GMP for district-wide paving projects, Crestview High School parking reconfiguration, phase 1, presented by Dr. Smith.
Madam Chair, I'd like to also comment on this particular item because it does deal with Crestview High School. I do want to say thank you to Mr. Meyer, Dr. Smith, Superintendent Chambers, Principal Ms. Hayden. This has been a long time coming, and I know for those that might be watching, it's not just going to happen overnight, and it's a complete redo of the parking lot, so it's going to take some time, probably about 6 months, up to about 6 months. So please be patient with the school. Because there's going to be a lot of shifting around and everything. I know I see one of the teachers is here from Crestview High School. But at the end, it is going to be beautiful and it's much needed. And but if we're patient and we give grace to the people that are all involved in it, it will go by quick. So, but thank you again for everybody who worked hard on that. Our bombing range is just about going to be
So what's
paved over.
Who parks there now?
So, there you got teachers, students. Mr. Meyer, if you want to.
I'm sure Mr. Dingus could tell us.
He could. So this is on the left-hand side of the school, looking at the school where the new classroom addition,
Right.
starting there all the way around to the left side of the building, behind the classrooms, and towards the gym. So it's mainly student parking, but coaches and teachers park back there as well. But that area, there's a driver's ed range that's close by, the baseball field and the multi-purpose building and the stadium. So some of those activities will still be going on throughout the school year, and we're going to work with the school to redirect everybody, but that's the area.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, absolutely. All right, moving on to 10.5, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 43, Revised GMP Okaloosa Technical College, OTC, North Interior Renovations, presented by Dr. Smith.
Madam Chair, on this one,
Yeah,
this GMP originally came out at 4.5 million and has been revised. We never filed a notice to proceed or voted on it. So this is how the system works, and it came down from 4.5 to 4.1 million. So kudos to Dr. Smith on that. So that's what this one's all about.
I know, it's exciting to see. I mean, nothing ever goes down, right? And
Yeah.
so that's good to see that. Okay, 10.6, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 44, GMP 2425 Priority Roofing Projects, Edwins Elementary School Roof Replacement Project, presented by Dr. Smith.
And Madam Chair, if I can comment on this particular item.
sure.
So I will just say this is another one that's been a long time in the works. And I remember back in 2017 when I was just elected to the school board, Edwins was the last school I got to visit. And I just still to this day remember looking, because I'm one of those people that look up and down, looking at all the facilities. And we had trees growing on top of the roof there. It was just really bad shape. But for the students and staff of Edwins, again, there's so much great things happening out there at their school right now. This is much needed too, and really happy for them. And again, thank you to everybody who helped make this happen. And if I'm not mistaken, this is some with the half-cent sales tax money. Yep. So we do thank everybody who supported that.
Definitely need.
And Mr. Bryan, I'm touring Edwin's tomorrow morning, so I'll be sure to tell him that you couldn't get it done, but I'm bringing it home for him.
Put in a good word for me, too.
Well, in reality, though, and Mr. Heinley, I always do appreciate your sense of humor, and but the half-cent sales tax really has done wonders, and these are the projects that if people don't see every day that we do, when we do go visit the facilities and all that. And, again, we just can't say thank you enough that because of the half-cent sales tax, we're getting these things done. And yes, it has taken 7 years, but we had to prioritize too. And this was definitely a priority. It's just taking a little bit longer, but trust me, it's going to get done now. So.
Well, and also because of the sales tax, we can use our other capital money. You notice in here, doors and things that we need, just general maintenance and getting, so that we couldn't even consider before. So it's great. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that takes us to 11, attorney's business. Mr. McGinnis.
No report this morning.
Thank you, sir. All right. Then down to 12, superintendent's business. Mr. Chambers, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a number of items, but I want to start off by saying, based on the last comments, Mr. Bryant just said the half-cent sales tax has done a wonder. And all of you know we've been to a number of ribbon cuttings. We're building a new school. But what I believe sometimes might get lost, or it's just not as exciting, it's the paving, it's the roofs, the air conditioning, bathrooms, flooring, doors, and the list can go on and on. And I always say at these ribbon cuttings, I get just as excited about these items as I do the big buildings that are being created. And if we go back 6 years ago, these items weren't possible. We would patch them, we would put a little fix on them, but we would not be able to do them the way that they needed to be done. And now these items are being completely redone as well. And when you look at a half-cent sales tax budget and a capital budget, and all of that has to be managed, and sometimes, myself included, I want to say, let's add this to the project list this year. And Mr. Meyer will temper me, and he will say, don't forget, we have for this year. These are all the items in the capital dollars. These are all the items in the half-cent dollars. And we have some flexibility, but all of this is planned out. So none of this is haphazard. So he has a 5-year plan, and as you know, when we did the comprehensive plan that Mr. Meyer did over the last, I'd almost say 2 years leading up to that, almost a 10-year type of a plan, just looking out to the future of what each campus may need. But I just appreciate all the other projects that are happening besides the ones that maybe make the news, but these are just as important. I want to just also echo what Mrs. Ivanchek said, welcoming everybody back from spring break. I think when you look at a week off for educators, especially our teachers and administrators, support professionals, that week I think was much needed. And now we have the final charge. It's the start of the 4th 9 weeks tomorrow. So I want you to think about that. It seems like the school year in my mind just started. And now we're at the 4th 9 weeks. And as you know, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a second, the 4th 9 weeks is busy. There's a lot going on. I do want to say that we shared at the last school board meeting, we talked about the National Civics Bee, and we know that it was hosted at the Greg Chappell Life Center, and the Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce was instrumental in helping us get this established. And I specifically want to thank Mr. Ted Corcoran, who really had a push for this. But we had people who sponsored this. We had Eglin Federal Credit Union sponsored the event, and Cox Communication provided everybody with an iPad, as we talked about. But there were some winners in this Civics Bee, and we did have first place was a student, Noah, at Destin Middle School, who received $500. Think about that for that student, and a trophy. Second place was Addison at the Ballet Academy, $250, and third place, Ariana at the Ballet Academy as well, with $125. These students will now compete at the state level in Tallahassee on May 31st with the ability to go on from there at the national level. So just very excited about the first annual Civics Bee. And again, we talk all the time, and I know you guys get the question as well, why don't we teach civics in schools where we actually have a whole civics course dedicated in 7th grade, which will be moving to 8th grade, and it's already in that transition already. But then we also have civics embedded in many different courses, social studies courses throughout the progression. So just excited about that. Also, as we know, and Ms. Ivanchek and others may have some comments on this as well, we had a spelling bee. And before I say something, you might have some words on the spelling bee, because I know you kind of did spelling bees back in the day.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. I was a spelling bee winner. Hey. Just saying.
Humble, too, very humble.
Hey, you got to brag about something. I was spelling
Now,
bee.
Ms. Ivanchek, I took part in a spelling bee. I did not win the spelling
Do you
bee.
remember the word you lost on? You probably can spell it now.
Yes.
No, I just was very impressed. First of all, you don't even hear about spelling bees much anymore. That's kind of a back in the day kind of thing. So I was very impressed that this young student over at Wright Elementary, Vanessa Westber, went and won not only the school, but she went to Tallahassee for the regional and ended up tied for 6th place. She went through 5 rounds. She's the youngest. That's the youngest competitor ever in the regional.
Yep. 2nd grader.
2nd grade. So I just find that really exciting. It's just something we don't get a chance to emphasize a lot. But didn't want to steal your thunder, but
No.
I just, being a former English teacher, that's just my thing.
No, I appreciate that. And then I want to do in the spirit of Mr. Heinley over there, just do a fun fact. Mr. Heinley School Board fun fact is Vanessa is also the 2nd grader in October who out of 2,600 entries across the state of Florida was one of 3 to win the Lieutenant Governor Nunez's Florida Space Art Contest. So this young lady's had an amazing year as a 2nd grader.
So she is an artist who can spell well. Yeah. I think it's fabulous.
Also in school district business, we had the 5th annual College and Career Fair, which I know some of you will talk about as well. But I just want to say this, because I'm assuming, Ms. Ivanchek, you'll probably mention a couple things. I just want to say, when you look at the list of those who are at this event, in terms of the vendors, 64 of them. We had the tax collector's office, Mr. Ben Anderson and his group. We had the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the Army. We had Eglin Federal Credit Union, the Eglin Air Force Base Research Lab. We had banks. We had the Sheriff's Office. We had colleges. I say all that to say it was a wide array of opportunities for the large amount of students, which I know Ms. Ivanchek and others will talk about, but just a wide array of opportunities for students. And as you remember, this event started out small in the old boardroom and then progressed to Crestview, where we did some things, and now it's at a much larger event. So just very excited about that. Do you want to add to that, anybody?
Well, I just want to say, when it was great student turnout, and what I saw were the students really engaged. You know, you can offer it for them, they just roam around. But another thing that I really particularly wanted to mention is that several different representatives for the vendors stopped me and said, what a great group of students. Yeah. They are thanking us, they're articulate, they're well behaved, they know what they're, interested in. And that meant a lot to me that they would, bring that up. I wasn't asking, they just said to me, great students. And that was several as I walked through the different ones. So that means a lot that our students went out and represented us well to our public.
Awesome, awesome.
I attended as well. I was very impressed. Kudos to the foundation. I mean, everything was just spectacular, outside and inside. You had the military outside and inside, had a robot walking dog. You had, I mean, there's a lot of people there, a lot of students too. That's very impressive.
Yeah, if you've seen that robot walking dog, it's impressive.
Yes.
It's impressive. Yes. And do want to, again, like you just said, thanking the Public Schools Foundation and the amount of work that it takes to go into that and to get the sponsors, the Beachside Community Church, Chick-fil-A, the Okaloosa Technical College, Career Source, and of course our maintenance department doing a lot of work to get all that set up. So I just appreciate all of that. We do have a job fair that's coming up on April the 5th, 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock over at Choctawhatchee High School, and we'll be hiring. So this is that season where Dr. Hale and his group being very proactive. As we know, every year we have about 200 or so teachers who will leave. We have a strong military community where folks will PCS out, and so we'll be able to fill some positions. As you know, a number of years ago, we started this process where other school districts already started this process, so they were ahead of us. So a few years ago, we said we need to make sure that we're in the game as well. So this will provide us with the opportunity to get the best and the brightest, so to speak. But we'll be looking at trying to get teachers, substitute teachers, paraprofessionals, custodians, bus drivers, and more. And one of the things Dr. Hale's group has done this year is they're also doing a session on how to become a teacher. As you know, more and more, it's different career paths that lead to a teacher. So I just appreciate Dr. Hale and the work that his department has done, because again, it's a feat to get this planned, organized, and then the actual event. So I just appreciate that. I'll call it curriculum season, and by that, state testing is upon us. And state testing will start in April. We have the writing test. We have civics exams and others. So that'll start in May. But then come May 1st, the litany of tests are occurring every single day, in essence, for the remainder of the year. And that'll be the FAST test. That'll be our EOCs, AP, ACE, IB, our CTE type courses as well. So the fourth 9 weeks, if we were to put it bluntly, it is a time where schedules are, I'll say, challenged. But our schools do a great job of trying to keep continuity going and keep an instruction going. But as you know, when you're testing hundreds upon hundreds at a time, it takes a system to be in place. So students are pulled to test, which means classes are impacted. If you go back a number of years ago, they would have a testing schedule where maybe the whole school was impacted. Now our principals have adjusted that to where there's segments of the school impacted, so instruction continues to go on. So I think that's a great thing for our teachers and for our students. Also graduations, they'll begin May 16th and they'll end on May 23rd, as long as the weather permits and we don't have any type of where we have to reschedule. But May 16th, our first one with Richburg, and May 23rd, the last one with Crestview and Fort Walton Beach High School. We do have a ribbon cutting that comes on April 9th. It's Laurel Hill. This one to me is very exciting because it's in essence kind of preserving the original building that was there a number of years ago, while at the same time providing Laurel Hill with a multi-purpose building. To date, we've done 15 ribbon cuttings. You think about that. 15 ribbon cuttings. And we still have more to come. But Mr. Bryant, I know that school is near and dear to your heart, but to be able to restore that building, I think is pretty special.
The Laurel Hills, April 9th.
That's what I have on my notes.
Was it originally March 27th? Did we move it?
It was, and I will just say that it kind of worked out good to move it because I represent our school board as a trustee for FSBIT, and we had an emergency meeting come up in Tallahassee on that day that I had to be at, and Ms. Martello, it also worked out better for them because they had things going on, so we did move it to April. And to follow up on Mr. Chambers' comments, yes, it's beautiful. I've already been in it. It's, you know, they're using it now, and it does capture the spirit of Laurel Hill and the history of Laurel Hill. And I know everybody that's used it so far, it's, you know, they really appreciate it. So
Awesome. And then the month of April, to continue with busy schedules, we'll be inviting each of you to your schools where we will have student roundtable discussions. In the past, we've called them fireside chats. Ms. Ivanchek knows if we go back, I'm not even sure how many years ago now, Ms. Ivanchek approached me and said, what do you think about speaking to some students over at Baker? And it was such a success, we did it at all the high schools. So we've been doing that for a number of years now, and about 4 years. And it gives us the opportunity to hear straight from students. And as those of you who have taken part in this know, there are some great ideas. There's some really great ideas, which would probably take a whole lot of money. But it's neat to hear concerns, priorities, and just ideas that our students have. So this will be the 4th year, so we're looking forward to that. And we'll be scheduling with each of you, so hopefully you'll be able to attend your high schools.
Yeah, and I want to say, Mr. Destin and Mr. Hunter, you're going to love that. It is one of my favorite things to be able to sit down. These kids are bright, and they give some good things, and they put us on the spot a little bit too.
They do.
And that's good. That's good.
All right, so it's 2 more things. Though we're in the legislative session, which I'm not going to get to the legislative pieces, but we're in the budget time as well, where budgets are being created. That'll happen in the May timeframe, so it's a later session, so which means our budget will come a little bit later. But you cannot wait until everything gets here in order to make decisions. So chief financial officers such as Ms. Perry throughout the state of Florida for eons have to look at trends. They have to look at the way that the Senate budgets go in, the House budget is go in, the governor's budget, and they have to be able to make decisions. So this happens every year. So in the May timeframe, that'll all happen. But one of the key things to a budget is staffing, especially at the school level, staffing at the district level. And Mr. Spolsky has a very hefty responsibility because the allocations that go out to schools, in essence, is the majority of the budget. So I want him to come forward and just talk a little bit about this process, and it's starting.
Good to see everyone again. So really, I'd like to say receive, I before E, except after C. When we receive information, whether it's from the Florida Department of Education, the state models, or we receive information on predicted or preliminary budgets from either the House side, the Senate side, or the governor's side, Ms. Perry and her staff do a tremendous job in pulling all that information together so that we can forecast or predict where we're going to be. And it's, at this time, really important for our principals to know where they sit in terms of the FTE model and also where they sit in the process itself because of the very late session. Last year at this time, we were already done with all of the sessions, so we had all of these numbers. We could sit and go through that formula, which really that's what it is, a formula. We look at class size, we look at contract, we look at how much we have coming in and how much we can provide out in the outside of it. One of the things that you do as a board and one of the things that we're charged to do as a staff are to be good fiscal stewards. And then this really is about numbers, calculations, and formulas. And the team that works on this at MIS, along with the principals and senior staff, are masters at it. So what we really do is we take the DOE FTE model, which some of our schools will expand and some of our schools will contract. So we have to look at not only just a school, but we have to look at grade bands within those schools. And those are long calculations that not only myself, but a whole team at MIS work on. And then we sit down with the principal and we look at ESE self-contained units. We look at students that aren't contained. We look at the number of paras. We look at the number of instructors. We looked at all of these different things. And these conversations really are critical to ensuring our schools have exactly what they need, not to survive, but to be successful, to keep us as an A+ district. It's one of the missions that we've ingrained in ourselves. It's one of the missions that really you as a board supports. It's critical. So as Mr. Chambers said, in May, we will have that time, is our time frame for the budget that will come from Ms. Perry and her staff. But in the meantime, there's a lot of things that we can be doing in April. So I told the principals at the last meeting, A is for April. It's also A is for allocations. So we'll sit down with them and we will go through all of the things I just laid out for you, just to keep you in the loop and to keep the public in the loop of how we really look at these things. It's an interesting situation because we have a job fair going on April 5th. And at the same time, we're going through contraction and expansion on paper and with our different buildings. So, people out there in the public or principals may say, well, how do I know how many to hire? Well, we hire the best people we can get out there. Good, better, and best, right? That's what we go for to ensure that our students have that leader in the classroom. Those are really on the front lines, engaging students and keeping them challenged. And as Mr. Chambers also said, we'll have a lot of our teachers naturally attrit through deployments, through retirements, through other opportunities, through spouses moving. So it's a moving formula. It's a moving calculation. So we'll continue that group of meetings where we sit down with them, we talk to them, they'll hire or they'll interview people on April 5th, and they'll kind of shake and bake through that entire situation as it pertains to how many people they may need, they might need, they don't need. And those principals have a good feel for are their populations expanding or contracting. The last step, of course, is once all of the budget pieces are done at the legislative side, and then Ms. Perry's staff gets the finalized budgets, then we'll make necessary adjustments. So it's really an interesting interdepartmental piece. We have HR, we have finance, and of course MIS, and the most important piece is our principals. Our principals, those leaders out there, not just instructional leaders, but really leaders of this allocation process. We have to make sure that we're providing them with the support so that they can have the strongest campus and the strongest instructors in front of those little fellas. Any questions on that piece?
Anything, board members?
And just for the board, what you'll see next board meeting is you're going to see the school staffing patterns that'll come forward. And we always do that in April timeframe ahead of the budget, so that's normal. And that school staffing pattern is the baseline of what we go out with. Once we know the budget to even greater detail, that's where, just like we do every year, we go out with special allocations to schools, where if we know that a particular school has particular needs, then we make sure that we, to the extent possible, based on the dollars available, we adjust for those particular needs, whether that's ELL students, whether that's students with disabilities, whether that's a school who may need even more academic support. So the staffing patterns will come out at the next board meeting, and then we'll adjust accordingly based on dollars. I'm not sure if it was Mr. Spolsky or Mr. Meyer who said earlier. Obviously, we want to be financial stewards and be responsible with the dollars. So that's the process that we go by. For newer board members, as you may remember, probably 15 years ago or so, we used to be site-based budgeted. So the schools would make all the decisions. And now, about 15 years ago, we went to a central-based model. And so when you're at the central-based model, the Mr. Spolskys of the world become critical in looking at the school's FTE, the school's true student population as well, because FTE at the secondary level doesn't necessarily match student for student. He's got to take into account 6 periods. He's got to take all of this into account, needs of principals. But at the end of the day, just like I've shared with Mr. Spolsky, he has to be a gatekeeper of that, so to speak, to ensure that the numbers match the allocations. And I do appreciate, we speak with the union on this as well, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, just to ensure that we're all on the same page. So I just appreciate the work. This will be Mr. Spolsky's first year going solo.
Yes,
And,
first year, yes, sir.
He's already off to a great start with his staff, so I just very much appreciate
Thank you,
the
sir.
work that he's doing.
I would just like to add, one of the most important departments that I did not mention, of course, was curriculum instruction. Mr. Chambers made the note right there that all of our schools, even though they have the American flag at the front and they're our public schools, and we all embrace them with our hearts, they all have totally different needs. Mm-hmm. And some of our schools, we are going to have to support in different ways because they feel and they look different. And curriculum was essential last year in really focusing in on some of those school needs, and then we would sit down and provide those resources as needed. Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
I don't know that the public really understands, and I was, in this district many years as a teacher and had some knowledge of budget, but until I became a school board member, you don't realize the complexity of all the different things that have to come together to get that budget so that come the fall, we put the stamp on it and say that's our budget, because we by law have to have a balanced budget. We can't spend more than we have, and making sure to make everything equitable is a big challenge. But I know that Mr. Spolsky's already doing and will do a great job on it, along with the others.
Thank you, Mr. Vanchek. And the last item that we have, I'd like Mr. Meyer to come forward and just, and he'll come forward every now and then as it pertains specifically to Pineview, but this is more specific to Pineview and Destin.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, Madam Chair, board members. There's still a lot of work going on behind the scenes and at the construction sites for both of those buildings. Last week over spring break, we were out there, and progress continues. We are on track, and we're looking good at the moment. One hang up at the Pineview site is we're still waiting on temporary power. So we've been working with Florida Power and Light. Dr. Smith has been in contact with them over a year and a half. So with new bypass and with new roads, it's difficult to get that power to the site. So we're using generators. That's the only hang up at the moment. Otherwise, construction is going well. So just to keep everybody in the loop, I have a couple slides here on both of these projects. This is an aerial shot of Pineview. We're coming from the west to the east. On your left-hand side is the new entrance, which there'll be a drop-off at the front of the school on your right. The far building on your left is the 2 classroom wings. You can see the first level of block is up and the foundation is up. Utilities, underground, sewer lines, stormwater, electrical were all started and going well, but it's exciting to see now the buildings starting, and you can see the layout. So those are the first two wings of the classroom. On the right-hand side now, that's where the cafeteria will be, the kitchen, CTE, media center, and the front office. So different angle there.
So how
but
many
it's
different
exciting.
buildings will there be?
Oh, goodness. There is one large building which has the administrative building, the media center, the cafeteria, and the kitchen. There'll be 3 classroom wings, another building with band, chorus, and the gym. And then there's another building which is strictly for CTE. So when you put them all together, there's multiple buildings. It's a large campus, but it's going well. So
Great.
that's the
Looks great.
progress on that.
And
To
the
the
road,
top
are
of the
you going to talk
screen
about
is
the roads?
the road is going well. There's no problem getting on the site, and there's no delays that we've heard. So everything is on track.
Is it
and works.
paved?
It is paved, not the final paved,
yeah,
but
but, yeah.
yeah, we
Great.
can.
So,
we can
so
get on
Mr.
that.
Meyer, if I can follow up on that, Ms. Vanchek, Arena Road, actually the part that's being built by the city of Crestview is now open all the way down, pretty much to where you can drive down to and get on the new
the
bypass
bypass.
to go
Yes,
to
sir.
the school. So whereas we, before it was, if you ever been on Arena Road, it's it's well overdue to be
Yes,
paved. So, but that part is now officially open for them. So.
That's great. So that is Pine View.
And hold on right there for 1 second. It's funny because as the drone footage is happening, what you probably did not see was Mr. Meyer, Ms. Vanchek, and Mr. McGinnis were out there. So if you really zoomed in, you could see that they were there, just really doing a lot of
I
introspection.
think I did see the pink hard hat, though. I did see that. I was going to say,
You
Mr.
see that
Vanchek, I
pink
saw
heart?
the pink
Yeah.
hard hat.
You know I'm out there making sure they got it.
All right, so a lot of work still going on with that. Destin Elementary School, here are a couple aerial photographs. You can see that that site is coming together. The one on the top left is looking, again, west to east. The school is to the right of that. You can see where the retention pond is, which is on the new piece of property that we purchased. And then the parking lot, the roundabout. It's not paved, but you can kind of now outline where the road's going to go, and then the building is set there. The foundation is in place, and that's the lighter area next to what the current building is, classrooms and media center. So the one on the bottom left is looking north, and then same thing with the bottom right. That's a closer picture of the foundation of the 2-story 30 classroom addition. So it's going well. They have built the road coming off the new entrance that we'll eventually be using. It's not paved, but that is set in place, and that new road is also on the piece of property we purchased. So
I mean, 30 classrooms is like a whole nother school.
it's big.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot.
And as a reminder to the board, which I know you know, so this right here is about bringing the 5th grade back to Destin, so a whole nother grade level. There'll be capacity for K through 5 at Destin, even with the 5th grade coming back. It will provide capacity now at Destin Middle, which was about 500 students or so way back in the day. Now it's 800 plus, so it's going to provide capacity there. Going back to Pine View, it's going to provide capacity throughout the majority of our elementary and middle schools in the Crestview area. And as you know, the overwhelming majority of our schools are over capacity. So this is the process of helping to remedy that. And it's also the process with these 2 projects, as well as other projects to come, to substantially reduce portables throughout the county.
Yes, good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And that is it.
Wonderful. Great reports. That's great. Okay. All right, board members, we're going to move down to 13, which is board members' announcements. And since I can, I'm going to start down that way.
That is fine.
And so, Mr. Destin, I'm going to start with you. What do you have this morning?
I just wanted to let everybody know that while we were gone at spring break, UWF and their team of archaeologists came out onto a parcel that is owned by the district off of Poverty Creek to look for Fort Kirkland. So to give some background to that, Representative Maney worked very hard over the last legislative session to secure about $250,000 for UWF to search for Fort Kirkland. Fort Kirkland is a Second Seminole War fort that was in the northern part of Okaloosa County and was attacked and burned during the territorial period. There was a lot of turmoil in the early stages of Florida becoming a state because it was a federal territory. And when we had just purchased it from Spain, and a lot of new settlers came in, but there were people already living here, the Creek Indians and so forth. And so it created a lot of turmoil and conflict, and that's what the Seminole Wars were somewhat about. And we know that Caleb Kirkland and his family had set up a homestead site somewhere near Poverty Creek, likely near what is now called the Fort Kirkland branch of that creek, but it's been lost to history. And so there's been several decades of a bunch of the old families in the North End and, of course, a passionate student of history with Pat Maney to want to find out where it's at. And so I know that the district did a very good solid to UWF, and I know that there's a lot of deep appreciation from Pat Maney's office, so that these archaeologists could come out, get some good opportunities for training out on the district's parcel near where we think that the next sites to look at are going to be that are on some private land. And while those access agreements are being secured, give those students the opportunity to become proficient on the metal detecting equipment and then the procedures of how you do those surveys. And so they had a training session on Thursday at the community center in Crestview, and then a full day out on the site on Friday. And I'm proud to report they found a lot of interesting stuff, but unfortunately not Fort Kirkland. It appears that over the years that we've had plenty of Crestview good old boys out there hunting. We found a lot of antique beer cans, a lot of shot, but it was a very good opportunity for the archaeologists to get out there and get the training that they need, so that we're going to go to some high probability sites over the next couple of months, so long as we get those access agreements executed.
So how long is the plan? Is it the next year, or how long are they going to be out there?
It's likely until the funding runs out, so as long as we can continue getting access agreements and good places to look, they'll go probably for at least the next year.
That's great. That's exciting.
Yeah, there was over, I think there were 3 or 4 PhD students, I want to say probably 6 or 7 masters and undergrads, and then a couple of private citizens that are proficient in archaeological surveying. 2 fellows that I got the privilege to meet and visit with, they're a part of an organization that goes and searches for downed World War II aircraft throughout the world. So last year they were in Saipan, and then a couple of years before that they were outside of Munich. So they go and they find some of our lost World War II aircraft, and if they can find the aircraft, great. If they can find remains, even better. So they get repatriated and buried. So, I mean, we've got a whole group of very interesting people that were out there on the property, but I just wanted to say thanks to Superintendent Chambers and to Jeff McGinnis, because it was sort of a timeline that was condensed, because we had a whole lot of moving parts. We had funding, we had archaeologists, but we needed somewhere for them to go, and the district stood tall and made sure that that happened. So it was a really, really good thing. It made the news, and so we'll end up having some more stuff to report on that hopefully in the future, and God willing, let's hopefully we can find Fort Kirkland.
That'd be cool.
That's all I had.
Great. Okay, Mr. Bryant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few things. I see that one of our Crestview High School teachers is here, and I'm just going to say a little bit about him, because Mr. Chambers, you talked about teachers who don't necessarily go into teaching at the very beginning of their educational college education. And I've known Mr. Dingus for a long time. I've known his mom, his grandma, his grandpa, a lot of history with me and his family. And Mr. Dingus actually worked with me at Publix for a little while. And when he was in high school at Baker School, and I know he's excited to know that those portables are going to be leaving. So, but Mr. Dingus went to school at the University of Florida. I see he's wearing his Gator sweater today, but he went to school to become a lawyer. And the next thing I know, he's at Baker teaching Spanish. And, I don't know if did you take your bar? No. Okay, but you did make it all the way through and all, so just a good person all and out. And you know, I'm happy that he chose to come back, took the area to be a teacher, because he has made a huge impact, not just at Baker, and he taught Spanish there, but he came to Crestview, and I know that was a challenge being a Baker Gator all your life, but he has really done a great job of building up debate at Crestview High School. And so you can see that you might have a passion to be a lawyer, but your heart brings you back to education. And I thought that was pretty cool on how your path has come, but to see the difference that you're making in the school. And I say that, again, I've known him for a long time, but it's true. He really does care about his students, and every time you go into his classroom, you know, the students are engaged. They really speak highly of Mr. Dingus, and the debate part of it has really, I mean, done a great job. And so we're just going to recognize Mr. Dingus there from Crestview High School. Also, during spring break, you know, school board members, some of us had to work, and I will just tell you that I'm honored to represent this board. I'm so honored that my fellow board members give me the support that I need to be able to do these things outside of the school district. I thank my wife, my family for being supportive, but you know, I am just honored that I can be a good representative of Okaloosa County, not just in Tallahassee, but in the national spotlight too. And this week, we left for Tallahassee on Monday evening for our days in the legislature, and being the president of FSBA, you know, that was one of the highlights, is being able to walk through the halls in Tallahassee. Now, I will say that Okaloosa had already been there. We got there a little earlier in the month to be able to meet with our people, but I will just tell you that I was tagging along with a lot of other school board members and being able to sit down and talk with their representatives. I'll just say that Tallahassee, it's a little different this year. It's a lot more cordial, I would say. You know, it's not as high-tempered as it has been in the past, and I don't know if it was because of special session, they just got it all out in a special session, and then, you know, said, man, we're wiped out from that, let's just try to do the business. But the House is about 4 weeks behind, so they got a lot to do to catch up to get to the finish line. And Mr. Spolsky was talking about how it starts later this year. And the reason why it starts later is because they're not running for office. So next year, we'll have everything by this time next year. So when he's given his presentation, you know, we'll have the numbers in there because they got to run for office. So they get all of that done earlier. I will talk about a couple of things, though, that I think are important. I sat through the Senate Bill 296, which is the middle school, high school start times. That's being sponsored by Senator Bradley. This would repeal the required implementation of the 8 a.m. start for middle school and 8:30 for high school by July 1st, 2026. This is definitely on everybody's agenda. I sat through the fiscal part of it. Our Senator, Don Gates, who we are really appreciative of him serving and representing us, he was the lone holdout that voted no on the first couple of rounds, but because of there was an attachment made to that kind of helped some, you know, feel better. They called it the sweet spot, is what they said in the hearing, but Senator Gates did vote in favor of it, so that means it's pretty much making its way. It's going to make its way through. There's no talk of the governor vetoing it, and I think at this point we do. You know, the Republicans do have a supermajority in there, so I think it's, you know, would be overridden with no problem. I know just about everybody that we went into, they were asking what's your feelings about later start school times, and everybody was like, yeah, this is going to make it through. The other couple of pieces of legislation is Senate Bill 166. This is Senator Corey Simon from Tallahassee. He has been a very big proponent of public education over the last couple of years. And last year we talked about deregulation. Deregulation was too complicated of a word, I guess, and they changed it to administrative efficiency. But this continues the deregulation work from last year, and once again, this bill changes the graduation requirements to using the ELA assessment and Algebra 1 EOC to counting for 30% of the total grade, permanently removes the cost per student station, and makes adjustments to teacher evaluations. This bill passed in its second committee unanimously this past week. And then House Bill 1403 and Senate Bill 1470. Again, this is another item that was Mr. Chambers had brought up, and this is school safety. And this is was by Representative Yeager and Senator Burgess, and this just works to address the concerns of the implementation of last year's House Bill 1473, school safety, which required us to basically man every entry point on a school property, even if it wasn't during school. But if there was people on our campus, that we would have to have done that. But it looks like this is going to make it through and kind of give us a little relief on that. And it takes nothing, just so people know, it takes nothing away from us, putting safety as a priority. But there is realities here, and this is going to help make it to where it will be a little easier on the districts moving forward. And this basically made it through on unanimous support. And then 802, Senate Bill 802 is term limits for school board members and county commissioners. This is one that will be placed as a constitutional amendment on the ballot to 2026. And this would implement term limits for county commissioners and would move school board members to term limits to the Constitution instead of it being statute. So right now, even though we are term limit by statute, somebody can come in and say, well, maybe we don't want them to have term limits, and can repeal the statute, and we could go back to serving as much as we want. But if it goes to the Constitution and it passes 60% or more, then it's amended to the Constitution, and then that, as we know, you're not going to be able to overturn the Constitution. It's very hard to do it. But I think the county commissioners were more added on as a way to say, well, we're just not picking on school board members, So we'll see how that all works out. It was actually scheduled to be heard in committee last week. It was temporarily postponed, but then it made it back on. We'll just see how all that plays out over the next few weeks. And then finally, House Bill 1367 deals with attendance. And I know we have asked and asked and asked about a clear definition of attendance and how the districts, will address attendance issues. And we know that's a big problem, and not just in the state, but across the country. And, the one thing I love about, having these connections within the organization of Florida School Boards Association, House Bill 1367 is sponsored by Erica Booth. And Erica Booth was actually, just up until recently, a school board member on Osceola County School Board, and she is now the state representative. And she is sponsoring this bill, and looks like it's going to make its way through the House and then eventually make it into the Senate. So hopefully this will be relief for us for a better understanding what absenteeism, how do we define absenteeism, how do we help try to solve the absentee problem. So it's interesting that it took a former school board member to get this heard, and it should make it to its second reading this week. She sent me a text last night saying it's going to the second reading, and she feels good that it's going to make it through the House. Now all we have to do as school board members, and I did reach out to Mr. Gates, and I said, hey, when this bill does make it up to the Senate, could you please support it? And he said he would look at it, but encourage all of our senators to look at it. But I do have to give a shout out to Erica. We're very proud of her, and being a freshman and getting something heard this far in, that's hard. And the fact that she's got it moving, she seems very optimistic about it, and it's a win-win for everybody if we can get that particular item done. And then finally, you know, we talk about school choice and everything, and I was at in Atlanta representing the state of Florida for the Consortium of State School Boards Association. And, you know, in Florida, it's a little different than what some of our colleagues across the country are dealing with school choice. As you know, I've always been a proponent of school choice. It's just, you know, I just feel that parents can make the right decision. But I will tell you that I personally believe that public education is still the way to go. And my two kids went through K-12 traditional public schools, and the majority of our students in Florida still go to traditional K-12 schools. The difference is now we have to do our part as a school district, in which we're doing here, is to show people why public education is the best choice. But I thought it was cool because they gave us hats that said, "My choice is public schools," and, you know, I was able to bring some to all of you, and we're displaying them all up here. But, you know, in Okaloosa County, it's still the choice of all of for most of our parents is to go to traditional public schools. So we encourage you to, you know, still be involved with your school, still know what's going on, and, you know, so it's still the best choice. Now, I will just say that, again, I'm partial to that because my kids did go through traditional public school, and I'm proud of them and proud of what they accomplished and what our schools still continue to provide for our students. And that is it, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bryant, and we do appreciate you representing us, the board and the district, and all these things. You do a really good job with that, and I'm always looking forward to hearing what you have to say, and this is pretty positive coming out of the session so far.
Yeah, it's really like I said, it's really weird. I guess, like I said, the special session, you know, that really kind of stirred things up, but now it kind of, you know, I think people are realizing that, hey, we need to get things done, and they're really, you know, when you're sitting in there, you got Democrats and Republicans sitting in there, and all of these pass unanimously. So, and, you know, so that, you know, it makes you realize that a lot of stuff gets done in Tallahassee. It's usually the things that, you know, make the news, that everybody thinks that Tallahassee is just, you know, just a road, you know, just a traffic jam. But they get a lot of stuff done, you know, on bipartisan support. And they're very, I love the decorum and the collegiality of it all. They're you know, it was just refreshing to see that, so.
Great. All right, thank you so much. Mr. Heinley.
Okay, a few things. Mr. Dingus, were you the MC at the Teacher of the Year?
Yes, sir.
Very nice job. Good job on that. Mr. Chambers, you mentioned about the testing that's starting to go on. And I believe that a lot of our multi-use facilities are going to be used for that in a big way.
That is correct. They're not obligated to that, but a number of the principals will be looking at that as an option, as many had gone off campus.
Right.
They now have that ability to be on campus and do it. So I know that that's a viable option that they're looking at.
That's a good move.
And if you don't mind, I'd add one thing. The MIS department has worked hard to ensure that the connectivity in those buildings are operative as well. Because the building as is would not have been able to work, but was also part of the scope, so to speak, to make sure that those buildings had the ability to house testing.
Looking forward. I like it. I attended the career fair, as I mentioned earlier, a couple weeks ago, but I also attended a mass casualty exercise up at Crestview High School. Very interesting. There's students there. They had a scenario of a tornado hitting the school, and they had actors and fake blood and all this stuff, and they did their different scenarios. And they have a sim up there in Crestview High School. It's an ambulance sim where they actually load the students on there, or the casualty on there, and put it in there. Very nice job up there at Crestview High School. I know Mr. Bryan was up there, and several other people, and Mr. Chambers, but it was a good show up there. I also attended the Civics Bee that you talked about, and I have to give a shout out to the Ballet Academy. Man, they had almost half the people were from the Ballet Academy. They had a good showing. And Eglin Federal Credit Union was a big sponsor, and so was Cox. And Cox had set up iPads for all, I think there was 14 students. And at the end of it, they gave every student that iPad to take home. That was, they were pumped up about that. Okay, last but not least, today is the 24th. Who is the 24th President of the United States?
Call on Tim, please.
Call on me. So I was not good at spelling bees, but I was really good with civics and history. But Grover Cleveland was the president. But what was Grover Cleveland's first name?
Stephen.
There you go, Stephen.
Wow.
And the speller comes through. Okay. And I can spell it.
Well, make sure you got it right now.
It's PH.
There you go. Okay.
Oh, I just love this. What else, Mr. Heinley?
That is
Because
it.
we're doing good. Okay. All right. Thank you. I just have a couple of quick things. First, you mentioned Mr. Dingus, and I'm just starting to forgive him for leaving Baker. But no, he's a great educator, and it's great to see him here. And speaking of Baker, a couple of things. First of all, somehow I missed this, but the Florida High School Athletic Association actually creates an academic team champions program. I wasn't that familiar with that, but what this is the team has to go to regional play or farther, and everybody on the team has to have a 3.0 or higher, and Baker has 5 teams. All right, so it started with football, volleyball, both the male and the female golf team, and they just awarded the basketball team, and we'll see how spring does. Wow. That's really cool. That's good. Also, the Baker baseball team is hosting an event in honor of their former passed away student, Cadence Fredrickson. It's called Cada's Promise. That was her organization. And on April 4th at their game, they're asking everyone to show up with teddy bears, which is what she requested, and they're going to donate those to her nonprofit that go to abused children. And
What time is that game?
6:30.
6:30.
And it's at BAYA, of course, where they play baseball. So that's a great event too. So terrific, good stuff. Okay, anybody else on the board? All right, let's move on. 14 will be public comment, the yellow card version. And 14.1, members of the public desiring to address the school board with general comments. And then that leads us to adjournment unless anyone from the staff or the audience has anything to say. Anybody else from up here? All right, been a great meeting. Thank you all. We're adjourned.